Didn't you say you'd been here before, Boris?
Once, back when it was still Soviet territory.
Seems like it'd be a lovely place, if it weren't a war zone.
The Pearl of the Black Sea, they called it, back when more Russians lived there. It was a very popular resort spot for the USSR. This is before the wall fell, of course. Then Russia and Georgia began to fight over the area.
Kicking off the war in the early 90s.
Georgia was a Soviet republic. Abkhazia, a semi-autonomous state within it. The Soviets liked to stoke ethnic rivalries between the two. And not just there, in all the outlying territories. It kept them easier to control.
But with the Russians no longer watching over the two.
The Abkhaz were scared. They knew an independent Georgia would swallow their nation sooner or later. So they took advantage of a Georgian military coup to declare their own independence in '92. Of course, the new Georgian government was not happy to hear this, and so...
The same old story.
And with Russia supporting the Abkhaz, it was a stalemate. 2 years later, the ceasefire meant Abkhazia was finally independent, but not officially. They still are not formally recognized by Georgia, or most of the international community.
This region is filled with breakaway states.
This is true. There is South Ossetia, also in Georgia. Transnistria in East Moldova, and Nagorno-Karabakh, which broke from Azerbaijan. In any case, even Russia did not officially recognize Abkhazia as independent until 2008. So it was not long ago Sukhumi was a war zone. It has changed dramatically since then. They have been rebuilding steadily, with Russian support, ever since SOP was shut down.
Good to hear. But doesn't that leave them wrapped around Russia's little finger?
It does. Which is why Dolvaez is calling for a truly independent state. He wants an Abkhazia that takes orders from no one. Not Georgia, not Moscow.
Sounds like a worthy cause.
Duh. But many Abkhaz are happy with the reconstruction Russian support makes possible. Few of his fellow countrymen were interested in what Dolvaez had to say. At first.
And then Desperado showed up.
Exactly. They brought the sad ending to this little history lesson. It is no wonder so many people mistrust PMCs, eh?
I suppose not. Boris, do we have anything else on Dolvaez? Any more on his background?
Very little confirmed intel, but it seems he is a former Chechen insurgent. He claims he was part of the Chechen National Congress when they declared independence in '91. This was just after the famous coup attempt in Moscow in August. Things were not stable. Gorbachev lost his political power. It was Yeltsin who signed the Belavezha Accords.
Right. It created the Commonwealth of Independent States. All republics that made up the USSR became independent.
The problem is, Chechnya was never a true republic. It was an autonomous state, but still part of the Russian Republic.
Like how Abkhazia was an autonomous state within the Georgian Republic.
Duh. The same kind of sad story. Russia does not recognize Chechnya as independent. They send troops and the fighting begins. It is said 250,000 Chechens were killed over the 2 wars that followed. 1/4 the entire population. The Chechens were forced to give in, and the war officially ended.
But the rebels kept on fighting.
Insurgents fled into Caucasus Mountains, formed several factions. They waged guerrilla war on Russia ever since. We think Dolvaez is the leader of just such a rebel group.
Sounds like Russia bears some of the blame for radicalizing him and his men.
I love my homeland, but she is not perfect. What nation is? Just remember, this could all be smoke. We cannot even confirm Dolvaez is truly ethnic Chechen.
Say he is, though. What would he be after here in Abkhazia?
Some Chechen militants volunteered to fight for the Abkhaz in their war in the early 90s. But when Russia recognized Abkhazia to keep Georgia in check, they also began funding recovery.
Which the Dolvaez crowd see as a play to gain influence. But wasn't the Chechen recovery funded by Russia?
Duh. And many rebels believe this is why their people gave up on independence. Perhaps this is exactly why Dolvaez is here, to alert the people before it can happen again. But if the Abkhaz people are not interested in fighting, his plan could backfire.
So in a way, it's Russian policy that brought him here. He thinks he's fighting to make these people free.
Whatever his motives, no one elected him and no one gave him a permit for murder. Now that he is allied with Desperado, he is too dangerous to ignore.
Kev, let's go over everything we have on Desperado.
Roger that. Let's see here. Desperado Enforcement LLC. Registered in the U.S., Delaware.
Makes sense. The U.S. doesn't regulate PMCs too closely.
Looks like almost all of their actual business is handled outside the States, though. Says here their financials are handled by a separate company based in St. Kitts and Nevis.
The preferred tax haven of megacorps everywhere.
Probably why they incorporated in Delaware in the first place. Loose tax laws. Funneling it all through the Caribbean must help with the money laundering, though. There's still a lot we don't know about them, but they've definitely been starting a lot of fires lately. They're a PMC in name only. What a name it is. Guess War Profiteers Incorporated was taken. But that's their business. In a nutshell, target war-torn nations on the road to peace. Reignite conflicts and walk off with all the cash that was earmarked for reconstruction. They also have ties to the drug trade, human trafficking.
Sounds like a real class act.
We've confirmed 3 key captains in Desperado. Their code names are all wind-themed. The captain presiding over this coup is called Mistral.
Cyborg?
Yep. All 3 have got custom-made bodies. Collectively, they're known as the Winds of Destruction.
I didn't...
Yeah, well, different as you... Sorry, man, but I...
Well, I told...
Yeah,
Am I...
they...
Jack, someone...
Right, and this...
Well, anyway...
Yeah, Mr. So Raiden.
The one...
Right.
Yeah, not to mention in terms, but it's... I've learned to...
Wow, I thought... Seriously? Hey,
I know.
you're no... Sounds like Inmani was a pretty great leader.
He had, but in... He had in mind...
True.
If only...
Right.
In what he would...
Raiden. That's saying...
Yeah.
Hey, besides...
Wouldn't...
True. And you might... So...
Start...
I get... What about...
My... And I'll... One thing I can't stop wondering about, Kev.
What's up?
Sam. If he wanted to... So,
Good question. You're laughing. I mean, he was...
No.
Well, what is...
One thing I don't understand, Kev. Desperado must be violating all kinds of laws here. Why hasn't the international community gotten involved?
Well, from a purely legal standpoint, it's actually not so cut and dry. First, there's the fact that Abkhazia is still not a member of the UN. Only Russia and a few other breakaway states even recognize it as a sovereign nation. In the eyes of most of the international community, Abkhazia is technically still part of Georgia, which would make this an internal Georgian issue.
Guess you can't really call it a coup if the displaced government was never seen as legitimate.
Exactly. And even if everyone agrees it was a coup, it can be tough to tell which regime is more legit. Sometimes you'll see the military topple a dictator and establish a provisionary government, for example. Now, if they confirmed atrocities were taking place, the UN could deploy troops, recognize government or not.
Yeah, but they learned their lesson in Somalia.
Right. Ever since then, they've been a lot more reluctant to get involved in civil wars.
So what about the US and Russia? What's their take on all this?
Well, America was never very friendly with Abkhazia or South Ossetia in the first place. And the Georgian government's a regional ally, so the US really has no cause to intervene. Russia wants the old government back, of course. The regime open to their influence. I doubt they'll opt for any large-scale action. Tensions with Georgia are running high already, but you can bet your ass they won't just sit on the sidelines. Boris has got a lot of connections in the Russian bureaucracy. Ex-military buddies. The Abkhaz are officially our clients, but I'm sure it's Russia that chose us. Maybe footing the bill, too. They can't use their actual special forces, so they call us instead. That's the beauty of PMCs.
We're not bound by the same rules as state-sponsored military.
Other countries would be outraged if the Russians went into places we can go freely. From our side, no state to answer to means we can run things as we see fit. By our own code, no compromises.
Then again, there's no one to say our code is what's right.
True. And opinions on that change from person to person, situation to situation. But you let your moral compass waver at all in this business, and real people pay the price. Money's always a factor, of course, but when it becomes the factor, that's when you got problems. The Montreux document lays out guidelines for what PMCs can and can't do, but there's no way to enforce it. A lot of people see that as the fatal flaw of the entire industry. After all, that's how we end up with rogue outfits like Desperado. Then again, it's also what leaves Maverick free to go after them. The industry has a bad rep, but it isn't good or bad itself. It's up to the morals of those who work in it. All we can do is what we think is right and try to lead by example. Anyway, sorry, you know how I am about this stuff. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Don't apologize. That's exactly why we took this job. Taking Sakumi back is the right thing to do.
Agreed. And now, that's all up to you, buddy.
We always talk about the Montreux document, but why hasn't anyone made it legally binding?
People are trying to, both inside and outside the industry, but it's easier said than done. Even with 17 countries on board, it's still just a set of guidelines. They'd need to negotiate an actual treaty based on that agreement for it to become official. And we both know getting everyone to sign on wouldn't be easy.
Yeah. Every government's for regulating PMCs until it restricts how they can use them themselves.
It gets complicated when you try to put it all in exact legal terms, too. A treaty would need to distinguish a PMC's home nation, the one it's active in, and the one that contracted it. Then you have the industry itself, which isn't exactly thrilled at the prospect of greater regulation. There's just so many different parties involved, and everyone's got their own motivations. So yeah, long story short, we're a long way from getting anything legally binding anytime soon.
Sorry I asked.
Raiden, head for the oil refinery.
How we doing, Courtney?
You're looking good on our end. GPS and audio all this monitoring equipment. Anyway, but contact...
Copy that.
Yep. Roger that.
Copy.
And it would have been...
I keep asking myself, where would it...
Maybe if I...
You can't...
Raiden, you need... No?
I wanted PMC work if the pressure ever gets to be too much.
I'm not... PMC, they need a... X...
You're right.
Hey!
How?
Oh,
Please.
You know, I almost felt sorry for the little guy.
What? That UG?
Yeah.
But was it... Maybe it was...
You could... It's just...
That was no...
No, whatever it... No? Got...
Yeah. You mentioned SOP before. How much do you know about it?
The Sons of the Patriot system? So, the idea was...
And I...
SOP...
More...
And that was after...
Not...
No.
Let's...
Need something else?
I thought we'd get back to our little history lesson. What do you know about the Patriots?
I know people...
And they were...
All the... the system...
Not more... Almost...
Well...
You can put this...
All right, then. Hey, Raiden. Let me ask you something. The Patriots. What I can...
Una Optic, the core... One or so who can... But...
Soul demand...
Yeah.
Even if...
The... Not...
NS...
Yeah.
Copy that. Later, then?
Yeah. You know, our last chat got me thinking.
Oh?
Yeah.
So what?
Well, the Montreux document uses a bit more...
Yeah.
I guess...
Right.
I get you.
By the way, Raiden, we're not picking up any EXIF codes here either. They're all unaffiliated.
Makes sense. We're enemies. Desperado's EXIF code won't match ours, and vice versa. How much do you know about how EXIF works?
Not much. Just that it comes up as a positive match for friendlies and unaffiliated for anyone else.
Which could be friendlies or neutrals not broadcasting the same code for some reason. Say a damaged transmitter or signal interference. But 99 times out of 100, yeah, it's an enemy. EXIF is based on the IFF radio system aircraft use. Stands for Expanded Identification Friend or Foe.
Too bad it only actively IDs friends and not enemies. But I guess asking troops to broadcast, hey, enemy here, kill me, would be a bit much.
Telling friends and enemies apart was always a problem in the air, but it's gotten tricky on the ground too. Especially in the war on terror, with all these PMCs and multinational forces mixing together. The US Army experimented with infrared patches to ID allies. They'd show up in night vision.
Then SOP came along and offered a more efficient method?
Right. SOP's gone now, but its ID protocol is still used all over. ID chips and dog tags, transponders required on all vehicles, aircraft, UGs, cyborgs, you name it.
But if everyone's using the same basic system, how do armies hide their info from the enemy?
Heavy-duty encryption, for one. The chips also use a hybrid cross-spectrum system to transmit the data. Without the proper key, it's hard to pick up the signal in the first place. PMCs typically only share their codes with nations or other PMCs they're working with.
What happens if they end up on different sides later, like in a separate conflict?
They just generate a new code and encryption key. The point is, EXIF is required on all combat units, but it's pretty easy to hide the signal.
And 99 times out of 100, unaffiliated means it's a hostile?
Right. Just like with IFF and aircraft. You're a quick study, Courtney.
Nice history lesson, Teach. Now, if you're done, I think you have a nation to save.
Just a little on-the-job training, Kev. Riding out.
What's up? No? Did you need anything else?
No, guess not. Just wanted to hear this.
Raiden, shall
Copy that.
as with
Fuel.
first as your say and your but most
So I...
correct. Keep in mind it will
Basically.
rather
I may be...
oh but
I'm anyway.
well it would
Huh?
this
Okay. So these self-repair...
indeed
And you...
Sir,
Heal...
you
I...
no a most fascinating opponent, wouldn't you say? Well, given that
But what job it could... was...
I suppose when you are
Yeah.
indeed after and that
Sure. Doc, that wolf you...
why
Just...
well with assuming but
I'll see.
of course
But let... Cause if...
in neuro hard
So it can't...
no this I could if it
So it-
I would
Glad...
how is your eye?
Great.
Quite
Too-
more well,
Huh.
no still
It
that
works.
ah,
Stuff. And with...
Well?
I can...
Doctor, you have anything more on these cyborgs?
only what we went over in your briefing. If you had been paying attention, standard military-grade cyborg. Most they can
Okay.
not, of course.
If you-
one
Agree. Hey, Doc, can I recharge off...
yep. Even
Doctor,
most car and or this true, of course.
can't...
Well,
Thanks.
so as I was saying, now,
You mean-
yes, as own in an
Doctor. I hear-
civil, but
You-
machine such.
Yeah, Doctor, about my... It's...
Well, it would
How do you-
take a yet.
How's-
Well, if in about in this,
Maybe-
well, so if no but whatever. So,
But if...
as you
Me. Doctor, about my... I'm not...
and at your few they do
That-
yes, each however
that's-
it was
break-
it could not and
Ugh.
my apologies, Raiden. I realize
Dip.
see as brief but this take
They took off...
precise as hands of course.
Long...
Do not
Copy that.
Doc, all the UG talk got me thinking. Why don't we see more manned gears?
yes, with a pilot. The bipedal tanks and such things, I must confess I have not followed the field closely as of late. But then, who has? Since Metal Gear A, all the advances and the funding in mobile artillery has been UGs.
So why is that?
Well, UGs take many more forms. Aerial drones, threaded tanks, armored transports. And they are perfect for the 3D work. Jobs too dull, too dirty, or too dangerous for men. True Metal Gears with a pilot and nuclear payload were huge and very expensive. They were not practical. It turned out the greater need was for smaller, cheaper units, deployed more easily and in greater numbers. So the field narrowed in on this aspect of gear design, an all-terrain link between infantry and artillery. But even then, the UG models were more popular. In most cases, they simply made more sense.
But aren't there situations where you'd want gear-level power, but also a human pilot there to make decisions? UG AI has gotten better, but it's still terrible at handling anything unexpected.
But Raiden, this is exactly the role the Cyborg has taken. On the manned gear, any advantage over a Cyborg in offensive power comes with a matching increase in size. This makes it so large as to no longer be practical for most infantry missions. Conversely, the smaller models are so close to Cyborgs that, well, what is the point?
Cyborgs are smaller, cheaper, more nimble.
Precisely. Perhaps soon we will see the Cyborg take the place of the UG, as the UG has done to the manned gear.
What, with wings? Scooting around on wheels?
Why do you laugh? It is the logical next step to have a human brain integrated into a tank or a plane.
Now you're getting into some B-grade sci-fi territory, Doc.
Oh, but it is all quite possible, I assure you. Just consider the possibilities. A humanoid friend for everyday life, yes.
But the brainstem can be easily extracted and inserted into whatever chassis best suits the mission. So, yes, I suppose the paradigm could be flipped on its head. As UGs become smaller and smarter, they could begin to fill the cyborg's role. They will come to resemble them more and more in form and function, no doubt. I suppose at some point they would no longer be UGs, but androids. Glorious!
One thing about fighting these cyborgs, Doctor. It's strange in a way.
Oh? How do you mean?
I can slice them to pieces, and with all their pain and emotion suppressed, they don't feel a thing. At least against SOP troops. You never forgot they were real people. But these cyborgs, it starts to feel like I'm taking on unmanned gears, robots, not living, breathing men.
Intriguing. Tell me, does it help assuage the natural feelings of guilt? There is no reason to avoid this topic. Man has wrestled with it as long as there has been war. Guns were a huge step, of course, as it became easier to take a life, physically and mentally. Then, destroying a tank or airplane, where you no longer had to see your enemy's face as he perished. Eventually, remote-controlled drones further distanced the killer from his victim, much like the video games. I suppose cyborg soldiers could be seen as yet another step in dehumanizing death.
Maybe. I do feel like I could forget I'm taking the lives of real people here.
Well, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't necessarily be taking their lives, strictly speaking. So, as long as the brain is supplied with oxygen, a cyborg can survive most anything, even if respiration is disabled. An emergency supply of liquid oxygen would remain in the bloodstream. The cyborg would enter a state of hibernation, yes. But so long as the brainstem were retrieved intact, it could be attached to another body and revived.
That's how the two Gemini survived.
The Gemini? Ah, yes, the twin cyborgs from the motorcade.
But Desperado's cyborgs are different.
Physical self-destruction is a fail-safe security measure. In any case, it is unfortunate that Prime Minister Nmane was human. Perhaps if he had been a cyborg, he might have survived as well.
We'll never know. Besides, a robotic prime minister? I doubt anyone would accept that. Inside or outside the country.
Yes, I suppose fear always does trump logic when it comes to the general public.
Exactly.
Raiden, something I meant to ask in our last chat. Did you consider opting for emotion restraints? I can understand one might be leery of the procedure, but it is all perfectly reversible, I assure you. You could implement them for a mission and then do away with them as soon as it was over.
I'll pass, thanks. To be honest, I have a problem with the whole concept.
And what is that?
Decisions are about more than just logic. Lose your emotions, and you risk not being able to relate to how normal people see right and wrong. Your conscience could end up different, warped, or who knows, maybe gone altogether. Boris agrees. That's why no Maverick cyborgs are allowed to use emotion restraints.
An understandable perspective. There is some data to support your belief. MRI scans have isolated the brain activity associated with choosing between good and bad. Mostly in the dorsolateral prefrontal and central orbitofrontal cortexes, to be precise. But this entire area of the brain is known to process emotion, not logical thought. It would seem to support the idea that emotion indeed plays a role in values-based decisions.
Well, there you go.
But another argument can be made, that it is emotion that sparks human conflict in the first place. All the great wars, all the great atrocities, would they have happened if not for emotional decisions?
Maybe not. But we can't just ignore the worldview of most of the planet. We don't exist in a vacuum here. To most of the world, a PMC operating on its own guidelines would be like a terrorist organization. They'd say we used brute force to impose our strange values on others. And they'd be right.
Yes, well, you have a point.
Abuse of emotion restraints has become a hot topic. Suppressing fear tends to boost aggression, which has led to cases of excessive violence.
True, achieving the right balance is difficult.
But on the other hand, it makes it possible to intentionally make people more aggressive. Even a child can become a bomb just waiting to explode.
Yes, it is very likely that Desperado is employing just such a technique.
Doc, that wolf UG.
Why,
Just...
well, with new, assuming that whatever...
I'll see what...
Of course,
But look, 'cause it...
in neural heart...
So it can't...
No, this I could, if it...
So
I would then...
Glad...
The Hammerhead missiles have an inertia fuse. Cut them before they stop and they will not detonate. And if it's too late to run, try blade mode. The Hammerhead will try to keep its distance from you as much as possible. To damage it, you could ninja run to close the range after it launches missiles. Or your own anti-air missiles will be effective too. Are there any nearby?
I kinda doubt they'd just leave him lying around, Boris.
Well, you never know with these types, Ryder. They can be careless. And you won't know if you don't look, huh? The Hammerhead missiles have an inertia fuse. Cut them, and if it's too...
Sorry, buddy. I got enough. Maybe try...
You okay, Raiden? No? Okay. Just be careful, alright?
Hammerheads have a nasty habit of firing all their missiles at once when they are about to go down.
UGs have habits?
Of course. They run on optical neural AIs. They can learn behavior the same as you or me.
And since all units in a UG line are trained in the same way with the same capabilities...
They develop similar fighting habits, yes.
Alright, so what do I do once it starts unloading all those missiles?
Ninja run. Use the projectiles as stepping stones to close the distance between you and the Hammerhead. Hammerheads have a...
Huge. And since...
They develop...
Alright.
Ninja...
Most impressive, Raiden.
Yeah. Gonna have to do a lot more than float around like that to beat me.
Indeed, indeed. So, now you are in Sukumi Old Town. Pretty much still the same as after war in 1990s.
Looks like it.
Make your way through town. You'll need to pass through an abandoned hotel to reach the hill. The hotel is serving as headquarters for Cyborg forces patrolling the new city.
Sounds like a blast. And why exactly am I walking right into enemy HQ?
Well, it's not a stealth mission, eh? Striking them will weaken their entire forces. Besides, we don't want them stabbing you in the back.
All right. At least I'll get to top off my electrolytes.
This is the spirit. Trust me, it is easier than knocking on refinery front gate. Raiden, let's recap your route.
Shoot.
First, continue down the road you are on. An abandoned hotel is up ahead. This road ends at the hotel. Enter and you should be able to reach a hill from the roof. There are more Soviet ruins past that hill. Get through there and you will reach the rear of the refinery.
Head for the hotel roof. Got it. Hey, Kev. That piece of shit who killed Mani. Is he one of those almighty winds?
Yeah. Goes by Sundowner. It's a folk name for this warm air current in Southern California. He's also, well, not the formal head of Desperado, but pretty much their de facto leader. Let's see. Born in Alabama, family was poor. Solid student, decent grades, but no money for college, so he joined the army. Says he fought in Panama in '89, then Iraq again, Afghanistan. In 2008, he drops out of the service and starts doing merc work for various PMCs. He was active all through the SOP years. Built up quite a reputation. Apparently, the Sundowner handle comes from all the blood he leaves behind. Looks like the sunset. Anyway, an IED put him out of action for a few years. But then, Cyborg Tech brought him out of retirement. The Army investigated him for possible war crimes. A few times, looks like. Desecrating remains, torturing POWs, some wrongful deaths. No convictions, though.
Pretty rosy past, huh? Not that I'm one to talk.
Hey, come on, buddy. You know that's not fair. You were just a kid. You didn't know what you were doing. And it's not like they gave you a choice.
Yeah. Thanks, Kev. Kev, you dig up anything more on Jetstream Sam?
Yeah, actually a bit. Still a lot of missing pieces.
I'll take what I can.
Right. Full name Samuel Rodriguez. Born in Brazil, so I guess that'd be more like Samuel Rodriguez. He's actually not one of the Winds of Destruction. He's not even a Desperado employee.
Yeah. Didn't seem like your typical PMC to me.
His father ran a Brazilian Kenjutsu dojo.
Genjutsu. That's a school of Japanese swordplay.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Japanese immigrated to Brazil way back when. They brought martial arts with them. Those evolved and became their own offshoots. You've heard of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? It's their variation on Judo. Brazilian Kenjutsu's the same kind of thing. A different evolution of the old samurai sword skills. Bit of capoeira and some other stuff mixed in. Anyway, I did some digging. Apparently, the Rodriguez dojo was a big proponent of the Uridachi style.
Uridachi, a.k.a. Setsujinken, the murdering sword. Basically the polar opposite of my sword of justice.
Rodriguez Kenjutsu uses kicks, sword butts, even throws. Unpredictable and very deadly. Anyway, this is interesting. Sam's father was killed by one of his pupils. There were rumors one of the cartels was involved, but it's not clear how or why. After that, Sam disappears for a while, then comes back, kills the guy who killed his dad, and leaves Brazil. He travels the world for a while, taking odd jobs, bodyguard, cleaner for the mob, etc., etc. Made a big name for himself in the criminal underworld, especially in Central and South America. One story has Sam taking out a mafia hit squad, 10 men, all with assault rifles, using only his sword.
Not unheard of for a cyborg.
This was back in the early 2000s.
Come on. He did that without enhancements? And pre-SOP?
That's the story anyway. And he's a cyborg now, so he could only be stronger. Not to freak you out or anything.
I told you, Kev. I got a reading on his fighting style from last time, and my body's been upgraded. I'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh. I know you will be. Raiden, head for the oil refinery.
Hey, Courtney. Have you ever tried Abkhazian cuisine?
Georgian, yes, but, I mean, I don't really know much about Abkhazia, so... It'd be nice to try it, though, since we're this close and all.
Huh. Even you haven't tried it? Now I'm really curious.
What do you mean, even me?
Well, before we head to any new country, you always hit up local spots that serve their cuisine, right? You know, your little research trips.
Oh, come on! Not always. I just think it's interesting to compare local interpretations of ethnic food to the real thing. Plus, it's a great way to get familiar with a big part of any nation's culture. That's all.
Okay. But no time for research this time around, huh?
Well, like I said, I've had Georgian food before. And most of the Eastern Bloc sees Abkhazia as just another part of Georgia. But yeah, really tasty. They had this incredible cheese bread. Ugh, and the wine.
Georgian wine is famous after all, though I hear you won't find it in Russia.
They say most Abkhazian cuisine is closer to Turkish food than what you'll find in the rest of Georgia. Apparently only their wine resembles what they serve in Georgia.
How are things back at Control, Courtney?
Things are fine. Same as usual, I guess. Russia is... Russia. Not that I've left HQ much to see anything, really.
No concerns about security? Isn't that a civilian airport you're stationed at?
Sochi International, yeah. But we're fine. We have our own cyborg detail on the job. Plus, any trouble and we can just take off. Literally. One of the perks of housing your HQ in a giant transport plane, I guess. Now, if anyone wanted to mess up this op, they'd have a much easier time coming after you directly.
I'm not so sure. Have you seen this new body in action? It's amazing. It's ready for anything. Unless they...
Oh, Raiden, yeah. Your body? It's so amazing.
Very funny. Yeah, you know what I meant.
Oh, is it getting hot in here? Or is that just your body in action?
All right. If you're done, I'm going to get back to the mission.
Okay, I'll stop.
Thanks.
For a guy with a bod like yours, anytime. By the way, I picked up something interesting on that tilt rotor back in Africa.
Desperado's getaway vehicle? What do you got?
I traced its registration. It comes up as a, get this, mail transport, a Somali civilian helicopter.
Not even the right type of aircraft. So the registration is fake. Well, par for the course for Desperado, I guess.
I wonder why they bothered with the tilt rotor in the first place.
Why not? They can take off and land without an airstrip, virtually anywhere. Hover, too. Meanwhile, they have the speed and range of a fixed-wing plane, or close to it. And they're quiet. You don't get all that BVI noise from the blades like with a normal copter.
Aren't they more accident-prone, though?
They were. Used to call them Widowmakers. The rotor tech is really complex. There've been a lot of mishaps over the years, but each one's helped perfect the design. These days, they're as safe as any other aircraft, helicopter or fixed wing. Most of VTOL's bad rep is left over from the thrust vectoring jets of the past.
Ah, no wonder you know all this. Says here you took down a Harrier once. Wait, by yourself?
Well, I did have a rocket launcher. Wasn't so tough while it was in hover mode.
I bet you're just being modest. Must have been a pretty crazy op you were on.
You don't know the half of it.
What's up? No? Did you need anything else?
No, guess not. Just wanted to... That was a Hammerhead, right? I know it's the first canard rotor wingcraft to go into general use.
Mm-hmm. Capable of taking off vertically like a helicopter with a fixed wing mode for speedy flight. A jet nozzle on the rotor provides the propulsion that spins the rotor and keeps the craft hovering. During flights, the rotor is fixed, becoming the craft's main wing. The tail wings and canards, the wings on the far front, provide lift while the craft is changing modes.
Pretty wild. And the Hammerhead's the only one out there.
The design began as DARPA-funded research. The craft they designed could take off and hover well enough, but they could never figure out how to handle going over to fixed wing. The project was cancelled in 2006, but AT Corps apparently picked up where they left off.
Sounds like a troubled development.
But worth the effort. Unlike a helicopter or tilt rotor, the machinery spinning the rotor is exceedingly simple. Not only does it cut down on weight, but maintenance is made easier. In fixed-wing mode, it is no different from any other jet aircraft, giving it a decisive speed advantage. I must say it's well suited as an escort to a tilt rotor, too.
I can see you're a fan.
Oh, I'm a fan of anything imaginatively designed. As a scientist, it pushes all my buttons, one would say. In terms of innovation, it shares a great deal with the Triebflügel, a World War II-era German concept craft. It, too, utilized the tip-jet concept.
Doesn't look like it has any business being in the air, though. I'd be kind of nervous riding in one.
Oh, but that's just what would make the ride such fun, no? I'm a firm believer in the case for more pie-in-the-sky experimentation like this. We live in an age of UGs, after all. We don't even need test pilots.
No one's gonna get on if it crashes, Doc. Hey, Doc. Kev mentioned a lot of the high-ranking military were brain-jacked. Can you give me any more on that?
Well, it is not my area of expertise, but I have working knowledge of such matters, yes. Much of it is similar to cybernetics, you know.
Makes sense. A cyborg's frame is reading signals directly from the brain.
Indeed. Brainjacking employs nanomachines to stop these signals from reaching a normal body. The pilot can then substitute their own signals and control the victim. They can govern all motor movement, but not the victim's thoughts. It is not mind control. More like a puppet. The subject will not move on their own. The pilot must send control signals.
You can't just implant an idea like a hypnotist.
Precisely. You must manipulate them directly. Now, there are several methods for doing this. The pilot can act out the desired behavior and send the resulting electric impulses in real time. For example, the master raises his right hand, the victim does the same. The master says, Arschgeige, and the victim does as well.
Yeah, I get the idea, Doc.
Another method is to set an AI in control as a victim. Less convincing, but less labor-intensive. The AI can access the subject's memory center, at least, to recognize acquaintances and the like.
But anyone looks really closely, and the gig is up.
Mimicking behavior from surface memories is difficult, you know. Quite difficult. AIs are still very poor at replicating more subtle cues, such as the manner of speaking. As a result, often the victim can barely pass as a human, much less any certain individual. With the current tech, a passing acquaintance might be fooled, but not a close friend. Not for long.
Good. The idea of AIs controlling people is bad enough. At least I'll be able to tell if it happens to someone I know. So, Doc, if brainjacking can access someone's memory, can't we basically see everything in their past?
Well, that would depend on precisely what you mean by see their past. The brain does not store every single detail the senses take in, you know. It records highlights, further simplified into a highly symbolic form, all to lighten the amount of data. We know how the brain reacts to what it was previously aware of. We can even gauge the emotion provoked. But reproducing memories? No. I've seen little progress in research to this area.
But say we directly linked my brainstem with the nanomachines of a brainjacking victim. Couldn't I read their memories?
There have been attempts at such things, but it is not so simple, you know. The connections between successive memories make up one's identity. If you disturb that... For example, say we remove all memories you have of being yourself and replace them with my own.
Yeah.
You would feel you were the great Dr. Wilhelm Vogt. You would behave very similar to how I do. However, what if instead you kept your own memories and we added mine to them? You would feel you were both Raiden and Wilhelm Vogt. Suddenly your memories would not lead one to the next. You would be confused, disoriented, without a sense of which man you were, and thus how you should behave. So, you see, the very concept is not practical for most military applications. In trying to read an enemy's mind, you would, in a sense, become that enemy.
You wouldn't know which side you were fighting for.
Precisely. Cyborg memories are completely different, of course. A cyborg's visuals are often monitored by outside parties, much as we do with yours. This visual data can of course be recorded for later analysis. All with full video and all in the holographic memory in their left hands.
So you can just sit back and enjoy the movie?
Well, it's not always recorded, mind you. And even then, there's the issue of locating the desired data buried inside all that video. You might need to comb 10 days of recordings from 10 cyborgs to find a single person or document. That is 100 days of work. Even replayed double speed, 50 days.
Can't you automate the search?
Of course. You can flag any time a certain face appears or if certain words are said. But the process is not perfect, and it still requires time, you know. Besides which, often one doesn't know what they are searching for until they find it. But should you ever require a search through your memory, Raiden, I would be happy to assist you.
Yeah, for a modest fee, I'm sure. I have to say, Doc, it's almost scary everything nanomachines are capable of. SOP, brainjacking.
Oh, but the cyborg is capable of even more.
You think?
I do. With nanomachines. You know this name has always bothered me, nanomachine. They are much more than smaller versions of existing machines. So much more. You cannot just take a motor and make it all teeny tiny, you know? A human chromosome is 10 micrometers long, roughly. A nanometer is 1/100th that length. These devices must be crafted at the molecular level to work at that scale. It is far more to do with molecular biology than mechanical engineering.
Okay, Doc, but where are you going with it?
It is, however, now possible to create proteins that simulate viral functions, effectively fooling natural human cells into taking on a wide range of less conventional characteristics, boosting strength or resilience or even regenerative ability. Not to CNT muscle fiber levels, of course. After all, these molecules and proteins can only make use of the materials at hand. That is to say, the atoms that naturally occur within the human body.
I'm not sure I follow. Are you saying cyborg tech is already more advanced than nanomachines?
Well, not necessarily. But the potential for future growth seems much greater, does it not? Natural means can only rearrange what is already there. Boost one ability too far, and you might take away from another. If the human race is to truly evolve, I believe we must shed this DNA-driven organic flesh and exchange it for something far more functional. Cyborg technology seems better suited to this purpose, at least in terms of military applications. But then, who knows? A revolution in nanotechnology could be occurring even as we speak. Progress rarely takes the form we expect, you know? Such is the great frustration and glory of science.
Doc, that wolf you just...
With new assume, whatever, of course.
But because if that...
In new so normal, this I could, if it,
So
I would then maybe...
Glad...
Pretty stupid to try and hide here. Looks to me like Russian spies.
We are just...
Well, we can't let them give away our position.
Get off!
So you could not stop them. Well, so be it. Perhaps you've got enough to worry about.
Right.
That sucks. I know it's not part of our mission, but I don't like seeing innocent civilians die for no reason.
Yeah.
Did they...
Life signs are nil. Guess I was too late.
Copy that. Back to the mission, I guess.
Looks like Desperado brought some sliders.
It does indeed. As you know, sliders are more than a simple unmanned combat aerial vehicle. They are especially effective when used in tandem with cyborgs.
So I hear. Just strap it to your back and you've got yourself a jetpack.
In terms of specs, it is equipped with 2 small engines, turbojets modified from anti-ship missiles. These are capable of putting out 3 kilonewtons of propelling force. Its high aspect ratio wings are built with artificial muscles. Their bending functionality enables both helicopter caliber hovering and a lengthy flight duration when fully deployed.
But what about offense? They can't pack much heat.
Not alone, no. The sliders were built from the ground up in a network-centric system. As a result, each individual craft has limited combat ability. Toughness was sacrificed for its compact size, which limits its ability to move at high speeds or perform high-G maneuvers. Flight range and time are strictly limited. Not being a fixed-shape craft, it has little stealth functionality. As for weaponry, it is restrained to one of 2 options: semi-active laser-guided rockets, or a combination of 30-kilogram class unguided bombs and 5.56mm mounted gun pods.
But I thought it played a major role in SOP, in regional conflicts and asymmetrical warfare.
It did. When all connected in a networked mesh, they enjoy extraordinary situational awareness. Such a group can search a wide range without missing a single millimeter. Not to mention, saturate a hot spot with gunfire from multiple angles.
Snake had trouble with them in Eastern Europe.
But their most attractive feature? How inexpensive they are to manufacture. Unthinkably so, in fact, back in the age of manned fighter jets. It's no surprise PMCs use them so often.
Yeah? Well, they're gonna have to spend a lot more than that to stop me.
With your legs, you can probably reach a slider even when it's up in the air. They have nearly no armor at all. Get close enough, and chopping them down should be simple. Land a flurry of strikes against the Cyborg, and his brain machine strike often makes that, assuming you have no matter how...
Looks like Desperado, bro.
It's hard.
But what about...
Not which flight as for...
But I thought...
It did such...
Snake.
But
These rifles Desperado's using. Mac 200s, right? Same as Maverick standard issue. Nice work.
It has lost. And it's... Well,
Apparently... Well... Okay.
A Cyborg equipped with a slider. Hard to target, yes, but they must also be limited by aerodynamic force. Use rockets or guided missiles, or just jump up and cut them down. Either will work fine.
Boris, any idea where they're getting the money to fund this operation? Assembling this many cyborgs can't come cheap. Not to mention getting them all here.
There are 2 questions we have about the money. Is Dolvaez paying Desperado out of his own pocket?
And if not, then who is?
We do not know size of Dolvaez's war chest, only that he has some funding. Insurgent does not always mean the dirt-poor guerrilla with the hunting rifle and homemade bomb. Some rebel groups are very well funded. In Arab oil nations, for instance.
Right. They have benefactors who share the same ideology.
There is also a chance some other party is backing Desperado directly, creating conflict for their own reasons, like the Patriots used to. Many groups stand to profit from wars, yes? Not just PMCs. Arms maker, contractor. Perhaps it is this kind of corporation behind it.
The oil interests alone could make billions here.
Already this violence so near the Abkhazia-Sochi pipeline is affecting markets. An interruption in the pipeline would shift the balance of power between the world's oil giants. Whether it's Dolvaez's goal or no, many groups stand to gain a lot of money from this mess.
These rifles, Desperado's nice weapon.
It has plus is and it such an
What was that civilian doing here anyway?
No idea. Maybe that plant's if he works there, he is probably losing.
Either way.
Well, he's not... Sorry, buddy. I got maybe try...
You okay, Raiden? No? Just be careful.
That's where they're holed up.
Some kind of electronic lock on the gate.
Most likely it opens only if you have the right ID data stored in your left hand. Perhaps you could find a cyborg with access and borrow it?
You see any cyborgs around here, Doc?
Why not double back? Check the vehicle route again. You know, back at the entrance to the old city. Who knows? Maybe you can hitch a ride. Most likely, platoon commanders carry correct ID data for the gate. Use enhanced mode to figure out who to hit.
Ryder, I have been thinking. What Sundowner said. How peace in Africa was a problem for him. Do you remember?
Yeah. Doesn't sound like somebody fighting for an anti-Inmani faction, does it? The Prime Minister definitely had his detractors. Anyone in that position would. But he listened to them, treated them fairly. There was no real injustice for the opposition to rally around, so the rival factions never got that popular or that well-funded. There's no way they could afford all this.
But it does not make sense for Desperado to be acting alone here either. Even if they trigger full-blown war, there is no guarantee they would get the contract. Perhaps this is about natural resources? The last civil war was over precious metals.
You think big business hired Desperado to shake things up?
Who can say? At least it has not grown into a real civil war. Yet.
We need to figure out who's at the root of all this if we're gonna end it.
But knowing is only half the battle. It is the other half that will get you killed.
Well, no matter what, this mission has a nice side benefit. Putting a dent in Desperado will screw whoever's backing them, too.
Our focus is to help the Abkhaz people. But if we hurt those responsible for this on the way, well, so be it.
So I get past the gate and into the hotel. Then what?
This road ends at the hotel. Enter and you should be able to reach a hill from the roof. That hotel was used by the Nomenklatura, high-ranking Communist Party bureaucrats. All destroyed now, of course, but in Soviet days, full of luxury. Anyway, you should be able to reach a hill from hotel roof. There are more Soviet ruins past that hill. Get through there and you will reach the rear of the refinery.
Head for the hotel roof. Got it. So I get past
This road that all this anyway. There are more
Head.
You'll need to score an ID if you want to get through that gate. Head back to the old town entrance. You'll need to head back.
What's up? No? Did you need anything else?
No, guess not. Just want to...
The enemy cyborg's ID information is embedded into the memories in their left hands. Most likely that's what the gate is scanning for. Depending on your ID, you would only have clearance for certain gates.
Convenient.
No more fumbling around with a pocket full of card keys. But you must cut off a left hand before it explodes, or else the ID will be erased.
And then it's back to square one.
The enemy cyborg's most dependent. No, but
And then it...
My boy.
bravo! Excellent work. There was classified data embedded in that hand. It appears that man underwent modification at the Patriot facility, just as you did.
So I get past the...
that hotel any there.
Head...
Stay vigilant, right?
It looks like they've deployed upgraded cyborgs, and equipped with blades, no less. I'm sure they've been trained well with them. Be careful, Raiden. Parrying a single strike means nothing if they land a combo attack on you after. These cyborgs can cycle between machetes, rifles, whatever the situation you can It looks like Grin, of course. These cyborgs just keep... Self-repair units are housed in cyborg strike and... Stick to quick slashes when you believe... You can also... It looks... I think be careful.
Sorry, buddy. Maybe try... It is a high-frequency blade, Raiden, not a plasma sword. There are limits to what it can cut. The HF waves strengthen the metal. Theoretically, you need to chip away at it. It appears they have sent in specially enhanced cyborgs. That armor is quite a bit tougher. It will take more than a single strike in blade mode to dismember them. Start with a barrage of attacks. If you can weaken them sufficiently, eventually you can cut them open. That armor is made from standard-grade composite carbon nanotube material. It should offer little resistance. You can likely slice them up in blade mode before they can even touch you. Of course, blade mode... The last blow in a combination of... If you... It appears they have sent in... It will stop...
You okay, Raiden? No? Just be careful.
Dolvaez. That woman.
Raiden, what's happening? Your heart rate spiked.
Yeah, I just dodged a bullet. All right, I'm heading for the refinery. I got a visual on Dolvaez and Mistral. Looked like they were arguing over something. Mistral's heading up the force at the refinery, correct? We're sure on that?
Yes, but I'm not sure how good a commander she is. As a fighter, talented, yes, I know, but...
Well, neither one looked very happy. Maybe she'll withdraw.
Oh, I doubt that. She may not like him, but she will follow her orders. She is just the leader on the ground here, I think. Someone else is calling the shots behind cover.
All right. But what's the end game here? Say I die and we can't stop them. Then what? Are they even capable of forming a real government? Do they think the people here would support Dolvaez?
Good questions, Tovarich. History shows it is a much easier thing to take a government than to keep it. An unpopular regime can only ignore the will of the people for so long before they rise up. And trying to do all this with PMC soldiers? Difficult. And very, very expensive.
Someone else must be bankrolling this for their own reasons. Someone with very deep pockets. Who stands to benefit the most from all this?
Most likely someone with an interest in that refinery. The plant has pipelines connecting with Sochi in Russia and Supsa in Georgia. Crude oil from the Caspian Sea is refined in Sukhumi and then sent on to Russia.
Oil. I wonder if Dolvaez knows he's being used. Then again, I wonder if he'd even care.
What do you think Dolvaez and that woman were discussing? Even your ears could not catch it, huh?
No. Even enhanced hearing doesn't help when it's too far for sound vibrations to travel.
A pity they were outdoors. We could have deployed laser surveillance unit if they were inside, near window.
Yeah, maybe if conditions were perfect. I'd have to be lined up just right to get the beam directly in front of the glass. And there's the problem of noise, too.
Duh, true enough.
Anyway, not much point talking about it now. Better I just head over there and wrap this up.
Of course, of course. I only wonder because I have no idea what Dolvaez is thinking. The more intel we have, the better.
Relax, Boris. Once I take out Mistral, the rest will be easy.
Let us hope so.
Hey, Boris, I know this probably isn't the best time for this, but...
No problem. Ask me anything. My goal is to have open company, hiding nothing from its employees.
Right, well, there were a few big proposals we had in the works, right?
What do you mean?
You know, my doing tactical drills with the Brazilian Special Ops Force in Rio, playing the bad guys in that South African anti-terror police training program, on-site security consulting for the Swiss.
Yes, we were working on a few things, weren't we?
Well, I thought so, but they're not in Maverick's task management database.
Well, right then. We've had to freeze those proposals. Temporarily, you see?
You're putting them on ice?
They would be too much distracting for you. We need to focus on current op.
That doesn't seem necessary. You're gonna disappoint a lot of prospective clients.
Well, yes, but...
This is about money, isn't it?
I should not have tried to hide it.
Right. Open company, remember?
Well, yes, but we can't afford for you to be too shaken to complete your mission.
Boris, I'm fine. I know it's not all my fault, but my client was killed. Kinda expect to lose some work after that.
Yeah, not your fault, but my responsibility in the end. We were far too lightly equipped. No one on the field made mistakes.
It's a third world country. We were working with a shoestring budget. If we went in heavier, burning Maverick cash, we'd have been in the red.
And that is the tricky part about this business, yes? But what is past is past. And too early to worry about the future. Just focus on the matter at hand.
Okay.
What do you think Dolvaez and that even you...
No.
A pity...
Yeah, and there's the... Anyway, better...
I only... The more...
Relax.
Let us...
You get all that, Kev? The woman with Dolvaez. That's Mistral?
Yep. The only female member of the Winds of Destruction. The name is from... a cold, dry regional wind in France that blows from the Alps down to the Mediterranean.
She French?
Yep. Born in Algeria, though. It was a French colony until they declared independence in the early 60s. Haha, but you already knew that.
Yeah. They were the last French colony in Africa.
You know your history. Plenty of French colonial families still live there. Billets Noirs, they're called.
I've heard the term. The main character in that Camus novel, The Stranger, was one.
You also find a lot of Algerians who've immigrated to France, although they put a stop to that a while ago.
Yeah. A lot of European countries seem to be clamping down on immigration lately.
Mistral joined the Foreign Legion to get her citizenship.
A woman legionnaire?
And not the first. There was one that served in the North Africa campaign during World War II. Anyway, Mistral's been doing PMC work ever since her Legion discharge. We're not sure why she went cyborg. She's officially leading the force at the refinery, but she is also a combatant. I don't have anything on her combat style, but do not underestimate her. The Winds of Destruction are trained killers, all of them. They didn't let her in because of her looks.
I don't need a reminder. I won't let my guard down.
Yeah, but, speaking of her looks, she's got, well, I mean, a couple of, huge... Look, just don't get distracted, okay?
Sounds like you should take your own advice there, Kev. So, Kev, what exactly goes on here anyway? I mean, obviously refining oil, but what else involved with that? How careful do I need to be?
Skip that week in science class, huh? All right, how much do you know already?
Just the basics. They take crude and refine it into gas and stuff. Other usable fuels, right?
Well, yeah, and stuff. Kerosene, liquefied petroleum gas, naphtha, jet fuel.
Naphtha?
The raw material for ethylene, which is then the raw material for polyethylene and other plastics. Crude oil's used for a lot more than just fuel, you know. These days, it's the core component of just about every chemical product.
Okay.
Crude contains a lot of molecular hydrocarbons and impurities. The refinery distills and extracts these hydrocarbons at their different boiling points. Once the impurities are removed, what's left can be used to make gasoline and so on.
Right. So, pretty much exactly what I said in the first place.
Oh, well, if you know all this already, I guess we're done here.
I could use a bit more detail on...
All right, cool then. Kevin out.
Hey, Kev. You have anything on that sword Sam was using? Didn't seem like your garden variety high-frequency blade.
It's not. It's a samurai sword. The real deal. 16th century make, handed down in his family ever since. Sam had it recast as a high-frequency blade. Doesn't say by who.
Is this something I need to worry about?
Maybe. You know the basics of sword making, right? The harder the metal, the better it cuts, but also the more brittle it is. So a sword's gotta be sturdy, but also just pliable enough to absorb shock without breaking. Walking that line, striking that balance, that's what makes sword crafting an art. Japanese swords fuse different types of iron, each with different amounts of carbon. Different levels of flexibility, in other words, so the blade can be tough and razor sharp.
And that gets multiplied when the sword gets the HF treatment?
Yeah. Basically, the high-frequency upgrade sets the blade vibrating really, really fast, right? That vibration acts on the electron shells of atoms in the sword and the local electromagnetic field. When the EMF achieves resonance, the blade's bonding is strengthened. At a quantum level, it's like the entire sword is made up of the exact same particle type. It also disrupts any atoms it comes into contact with. Say, those that make up the target. Their electron clouds shrink from exposure to quantum decoherence at the Planck scale. In other words, it electrically severs the bonds that keep the target's atoms together.
You lost me around the EMF part.
And that's the dumbed-down explanation. To be honest, even I don't understand all the details. Point is, an HF upgrade is like an amplifier. It multiplies what's already there. So Sam's badass blade might give him the edge. I mean, you know what I mean.
The original sword was really that good?
Sounds like it. Says here it's a Murasama blade.
Murasama. Sounds familiar.
One of the top 10 best-known sword makers worldwide, easy. In Japan, he is legendary. They say his swords thirst for blood, that they choose who will wield them, you know, that sort of thing.
Ooh, now I really am scared.
I know, right? Raiden, head for the oil refinery.
Riding. You need to save?
Did you catch all that, with Dolvaez and Mistral?
Yeah, I was monitoring the whole time. Dolvaez's not really what I expected. I've seen his file, plenty of photos, but I guess I expected someone more, I don't know, threatening?
Didn't seem too friendly to me.
No, I mean, you hear terrorist, you think of some cold, calculating professional. Dolvaez looks more like some guy off the street.
Cold, calculating professional types don't usually bother with terrorism. It's too risky. Most terrorists are ordinary people, radicalized one way or another.
Yeah, I guess so.
Of course, that doesn't make what they do any easier to forgive. What about Mistral? What'd you think?
Well, she's certainly attractive. Probably an artificial face, though. I'm guessing most of her is artificial.
Roger that.
Raiden, the Mistral woman. Is she truly a full-body cyborg?
That's what the intel says, at least. Why? You notice something?
Indeed. Two somethings, in fact. Based on their movements, her chest region did not appear to be artificial.
You can tell that just from what I saw?
Indeed. After some detailed image analysis, I am 80% certain that is her own natural torso. If it is indeed a cyborg chassis, it is the most advanced I've ever seen. Such technology would not come cheap. It would mean whoever is backing Desperado is likely quite wealthy.
Probably so. As far as Mistral goes, it really doesn't matter to me. Natural, synthetic, man, woman, an enemy is an enemy.
Ah, are you not even the least bit curious?
Doc, I'm seeing Desperado cyborgs explode here after I take them down.
Cyborgs often...
So they...
I understand. This is... You should... They could... Oh, just...
Yeah.
You must... Raiden, have I told you...
Several.
It was the call. It was... I was... Calling. Yes. It was then... Patents filed in my name...
And that's when you started filling orders from PMCs.
Indeed. Work, but...
Yeah.
But... yes, I should think we have both benefited from our... Which...
Got it.